together. Welcome to our Dreamer discussion here. My name is Ricky Corona, and I'm the president of MIAS. And another person that helped collaborate here was Ariana Mora. She is a member of Sigma Lambda Gamma. And Rick, who represents Amos. And you want to introduce yourself, or?
I'm Rick.
Okay, and these are our dreamers who are here to talk to us about some policies and their experiences, and hopefully we get a more personal connection with them so we can support them. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah. My name is Jessica Maciel Hernandez, and I graduated from Iowa State last May in 2019 in microbiology. I was in the science-bound program. Some of you might know me, maybe not. Currently, I'm working at Eurofin Scientific, which is a lab in Des Moines, and I'm a dreamer, so we'll get more into that later.
Hi everyone, my name is Kenia. I don't go to Iowa State. I'm a sophomore at Drake University. I am also a dreamer, and I'm studying management and human resource. And I want to say we're going to talk about our stories, and we're going to talk about the difficulties that dreamers are having here on campus that you might not be aware of. But we want it to be more of a conversation. So if you ever have, if you have a question, feel free to stop us, and we want it to be a conversation back and forth.
I mean, first off, how many of you are aware of the issue or what a dreamer is, or maybe show of hands, how many of you know what a dreamer is? Most likely because somebody knows a dreamer, I'm assuming, or so I think more on the back end, what issues do you guys think, or do you guys know of, that dreamers come across, whether throughout their, high school, even middle school, and now college career? Or have you heard of?
Financial aid.
Okay. What about financial aid?
Like you can't apply for financial aid, or you're limited on financial resources for school.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you here are on loans or scholarships, most likely, right? Scholarships is a huge one. Bring it back to that, dreamers or non-dreamers, as long as you don't have, a social security number, you can't apply for certain scholarships, big scholarships that, some of you may be on. So.
And go ahead.
Well, the FAFSA form asks you for a social security number right there. So how do you even get past that?
Well, we have DACA. So are you familiar with DACA? Anyone? DACA was a work permit that was given to dreamers about 2.5 years ago. So you have to follow the requirements. You can't have a criminal record. You had to arrive to the United States before you turn 15. You have to be continuing school, whether it's GED or college education. You get a work permit, a social security, and you can get a license. Even though we are under a legal status now, we're still not considered, we still don't fall in one of the categories for FAFSA. So if we want to go to college, we have to pay out of pocket. So I recently met this dreamer who graduated this December from Iowa State, and listening to her story, it just left me in awe, because she was taking 20 credits while working 3 jobs while she was going to Iowa State. And the only positive thing about being a dreamer is that if you do get your college, if you do get a college diploma, you graduate debt-free. But I mean, it sounds nice, but while you're going through school, you have to work multiple jobs to be able to pay your college tuition. So we don't qualify for FAFSA. We do qualify for some loans, but they have crazy interest rates. So I'm not on loans. I don't know if you did anything, just because we would have never been able to pay them off.
Or even qualify
Yeah.
for a loan.
Mm-hmm. Scholarships, there's some scholarships out there for us. They're very limited. Some programs pick and choose the dreamers that they want to give the scholarships to. So that's another thing. How can we advocate for these dreamers that are seniors in high school that are in the science bound or upper bound program? Up to this date, they're thinking that they're gonna get it, but once, they go into the interview, I don't know the process of it. Some of them receive the scholarships, others don't, so they're left with, very little choices.
I mean, we're not here to, we're not here as much to share our story as we are to advocate for those that are still in the process of going through that, getting to college. Just because we've somewhat already made it, she's already in college, I've already graduated, Right now, currently, I have family members, we all know somebody who is either even in middle school and high school that are trying to get into certain, programs that lead to college and just can't because of that, status that they have. So, and even you guys being here in college, it's kind of being a voice, many voices besides just ours, advocating for those opportunities that other dreamers may not, have, like, I was telling Reggie and them, right now in college you get to study abroad, you get to apply for different jobs, different co-ops, internships. You just can't do that as a dreamer as easily just because you don't have that status as a citizen here in, this country. So it's a lot about who you know and what you know, and who to talk to and getting that, networking going on early on. So.
Yeah, and to go off of that, so I've recently been very active in our community trying to advocate for higher education among our Latinos. And I came across this girl who's a U.S. citizen. She's a senior right now at Valley, and because she's the oldest in her family, she didn't know how to go about applying for college. She didn't even know what FAFSA was, and she qualified for it. So the need is out there. The need is out there for us, who are already in college. What can we do for those that are still trying to figure it out, how to go to, whether it's Iowa State or any other private institution. So a little bit about myself, just for you guys to know me. I came to the United States when I was 11, and I was born in El Salvador, and I came to 5th grade. And I knew about my situation. I knew I was undocumented, so I didn't want that to stop me, so I still did pretty good in school. I was undocumented until the first semester of my senior year. So even though I had all the volunteers experience on my resume, good grades, I had everything that a student needed to have in order to go to college. I just didn't have the Social Security. So that was a very stressful time in my life. I was going to a Catholic school. So there was some Latinos there, but in my graduating class, I believe I was one out of 2 dreamers in the class, so there wasn't a lot of people for me to talk to. I got connected to Esperanza Pintor, which I don't know if many of you have heard of or known. She was in the same situation when she was a senior in high school, so she didn't really help me a lot in the sense, she told me, oh, there's a scholarship for you. There was, you should go to Iowa State or you should go to UNI because they do this. The best thing that she did for me was give me hope. And because she gave me hope, I tried harder. I started asking more questions. And I'm sure people were getting bored of me, just calling them and telling them, like, is there anything out there for me? At the end of my senior year, I was able to get DACA. So I was really excited. But then I learned that with DACA, you can't qualify for financial aid. So then, my parents don't have all the money in the world to pay for my tuition out of their own pocket. So then I started looking at institutions. I really wanted to go to UNI. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I really wanted to go to UNI. I got accepted, and I called them and I said, I just received my approval letter, acceptance letter. I'm thinking of DACA. And I think I talked to the wrong person that day, and they told me, because of your situation, we can't take you in. I'm sorry, but you should look for another school. And so I was heartbroken. That was my only choice at that time. And then I got accepted to Drake. So I was already expecting the worst. And so I was like, okay, they're going to tell me the exact same thing. I went to admissions, and private institutions are a little bit different than public. So I told them my situation, and they told me that they didn't care, that they were going to try to find something for me to go to Drake or something. So they created a grant for me, and since they don't have to tell, they don't have to tell anyone what they do, they were able to help me a lot more, and that's how I ended up at Drake. Not that Drake is an amazing school, but they also need to do a lot of work. It's not a very diverse school, so they need to do a lot more outreach. And one of the things that we're doing is making it easier for dreamers to get to college. We recently had a petition passed through Student Senate at Drake. We got 10% of the student body signatures, and the petition basically says that we want Drake to come out and say that they support undocumented and documented students. This is just the first step. Does not mean that it's gonna actually go through, but it's a success for us. Like I said, I've recently been talking to a lot more, because I'm still in Des Moines. I still have a lot of connections with the high schools. I talked to the one girl who's a senior at Valley, didn't know how to do anything, and so that's the need. We need more college students to go back to the local high schools and be a help for them, and tell them how you guys did things to get to here. There's a lot of dreamers who are interested in coming to Iowa State. I think that's the school that everyone really wants to go to. That's what I've noticed, which is great. But I recently heard of 2 dreamers who were freshmen last semester, came to Iowa State. Again, they talked to the wrong person, or they weren't able to get all the help that they could. Now they're back at home because they had to transfer back because of financial problems. Like she said, our college experience looks a little bit different than most, and the financial part of it is one of the biggest limitations that we have. So we are here today to talk to you guys about what can we do, or what can you guys do to help all of those who are still trying to figure out whether they can come to Iowa State or UNI or any other institution. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but in 2050 will be the majority. So I think we need a lot more professionals, and we need to, like I said, advocate for those who are still in high school and let them know that it is possible to get a college education.
I know, touching more on maybe like the best advice, that you can give someone if you come across a dreamer or you already know a dreamer, is to never be afraid to ask questions, and to go straight to the source sometimes. Don't let anybody, tell you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't ask that person, you shouldn't ask that other person. Because the only reason that I was able to even get into Iowa State was because I was in the Science Bond program, and I talked to the director of the Science Bond program, and I let her know my legal status. At that point, nobody knew what my legal status was. So I let her know what it was, and she's like, I'm so glad you told me about it right now, which is my junior year in high school, because as of next year, we won't be accepting any more undocumented students into the Science Bond program in order to get into Iowa State. So for me, I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what do I have to do now? And she's like, well, you pretty much have to graduate high school this year. And she's like, if you graduate high school this year, finish your high school in 3 years, then I'll be able to get you into the program and get you that scholarship finally. So I graduated high school in 3 years, came to Iowa State, and just with that, letting her know my situation, even just sharing my story, that's the only way that I was able to have my full pass here at, Iowa State. Once I was in, like she said, they created a grant for her. That's what they did for my scholarship, for my Science Bond program. I wasn't able to, get financial aid either. They created a special grant for myself in order to put that money, into my, ISU account. So, you hear everyone always saying, oh, I heard of this girl that did this and this girl that did that. Yes, please go on and tell, our stories. We can't share it with everyone, we try to, just because we're living proof that it's possible. But, the best that you can do is say, I heard of this girl that, she did this, she asked this, she went to this person and she got in, she made it, and it's still possible. Just because of, the questions that you ask and what don't ever think that there isn't a possibility. Don't ever think that the door is just always shut. So, that's something that you guys can share with, a dreamer that you guys come across or know already.
So two questions, Jessica. Was that a decision of your high school to stop accepting undocumented kids into the science-bound program?
No, that was a decision that came from the Science Bound director, which I'm assuming came from her supporters, her sponsors
At Iowa State?
at Iowa State. And, big companies, like some of them that, we now work for, such as Pioneer and stuff like that, sponsor the Science Bound program, which is how we get all our money. So it's possible that, yes, that's where the politics come in, where, whoever is deciding who gets that money, what students get that money, made a decision not to give that money to undocumented students anymore.
And then once they accepted you here, they created a scholarship for you, they being Iowa State?
My Science Bound program. Yep, the director, the people that were working within the Science Bound program had moved around their contacts here at Iowa State at admissions office, financial aid office, and they're the ones that created that special grant.
Any questions so far? Yes.
So is every student who has DACA, are they considered a dreamer then, or is it not that simple?
I would
Yeah, I
say
think
yes.
so.
Every person who has qualified for DACA is a dreamer. There's people, or the students, high school now mostly, that didn't qualify for DACA just because of the time that they arrived here to the U.S., but are in the same position of those dreamers. So, yeah.
Really, we were calling you guys dreamers before there ever was a DACA because
Right.
you were the young people who would have been eligible if the DREAM Act had ever been passed by Congress. So you could kind of say that there are more dreamers out there than there are DACAs.
Yeah.
Not everyone that is a dreamer qualified
Yeah.
for DACA.
So there's still a large population of undocumented students that maybe they just arrived to the United States when they were 16, so they missed that cut by a year. So there's still that population.
And it's where, at the higher end, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to tell all those people not, to stop coming to the U.S.? No, it's like our families did it, they came, at whatever time it was, they're still going to be coming, because, again, we're still all living proof that we can have a better life here and can give a better life, back home, but someone's got to, keep working at it and, speaking up for those people that maybe aren't afraid or just can't for their own reasons.
Yeah. Any other questions on that topic? Okay, to take it in a different direction, because we talked about the need of advocates for higher education among our high schoolers. We also need your help to advocate for us. We can't vote, and right now the House and Congress, I think, is run by Republicans. And I don't know did you guys hear what happened at the Iowa Freedom Summit? Did anyone hear about that? So the Iowa Freedom, okay, wait, let me ask this question. Do you know who Steve King is? Yes? Does everyone know? So, Steve King, the piece is here. I guess, yeah. Like, are you supposed to take it?
I ain't paying for that.
Okay, I just wondering.
Ricky's in charge.
Okay, so Steve King is one of Iowa's representatives. He is very, not just anti-Dreamer, he's just very anti-Latino. He has compared the Dreamer population to dogs, saying that we need to be trained, but even then we're not as smart as dogs are. He has said that Dreamers are drug dealers crossing the border with their ankle sizes. Their ankles are as big as cantaloupes or something. Yeah, and we bring drugs in. So he's very anti-immigrant. So right now he's representing the state of Iowa. So he held a summit this past Saturday, and all Republican senators came. Potentially they will be running for presidency. And I was involved with the group who interrupted the summit. And can keep chewing and everything, it's okay. So at this moment, I know I threw a lot on you. I feel like I did, so I apologize. So we want to start with questions, and is this something that you didn't understand? They want us to record this so you can be used in the radio, I think.
On the community radios.
Yes. So when you ask the question, we'll probably repeat it back, so we just have it recorded. So any questions so far?
I just have a question can you guys clarify what the difference between Dreamers, DACA, and DAPA is? Do you guys know?
Yes. So the question was clarify between what dreamers and then people who qualify for DACA, and then what was that last part?
DAPA?
DAPA. Okay. Not too familiar with DAPA, but I know for dreamers it was anybody who was just undocumented, that had a good record in school, that was young enough to still maybe go to college, in high school, and that was, we got the name Dreamers because of the DREAM Act that was going to pass, in order for us to give us that opportunity to have that social security number or status, legal status. DACA is a new set of rules or qualifications that you either qualify or don't. They're very specific. You had to come to the U.S. before a certain age, before a certain year, even month and day into the country. You had to be no criminal record, good school record, living here for a certain number of years, and that's what, DACA is. DAPA.
Yeah, I work at American Friends Service Committee, so it's a nonprofit. We provide legal services at little or no cost sometimes. That's where I applied for my DACA, and later on I ended up working there. So we do a lot of the DACA applications. Like she said, you had to arrive in the United States before January 15, 2007. So if you came to the United States the 16th of June that year, you don't qualify for it. But because of the new announcement that President Obama made, that has changed a little bit. DACA has now been extended until 2010. So more people will be able to apply that maybe missed out the date, and now the work permit will be for 3 years. So every 3 years we're going to have to pay $500 to renew our DACA. Now DAPA, it stands for Deferred Action for Parent Arrivals. So this will be a work permit like DACA good for 3 years. They'll receive Social Security, and with that they'll be able to get their license. They have to have a son or daughter that was born in the United States. So there's still, I don't know how many, yes.
Either a son or daughter who's a U.S. citizen or a permanent green
Yes.
card partner.
Yeah,
So
permanent
even
resident.
if you have the green card now, your parents will qualify for DAPA if everything goes well. So
Yeah.
you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to just a resident, green card holder, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and they have to meet certain requirements too. So they're gonna have to show a lot of evidence, like all the taxes they have filed, when they took their son or daughter to the hospital, like maybe 5 years ago. So they're gonna have to show a lot of evidence in order for them to be able to qualify for this. They have to prove that they have been in the United States every year. They have lived here, and then they haven't been back and forth. What else is something? Clean criminal record. I think the forms haven't come out yet. The forms will come out in May, but I think if we're basing it on DACA, I think you can have up to 2 misdemeanors. So there's that. So they could.
No felonies.
No felonies, that's right. And so like I said, they won't be able to apply for it until May when the forms come out. But even then, right now, the Republican Party is trying to do whatever they can so that those parents can't even get the chance to apply for this work permit. There's still going to be a large population of parents who don't qualify for this because their parents are dreamers. So for example, my parents are here undocumented. They won't qualify for DAPA because they're parents of 3 dreamers. So there's still a large undocumented community that still needs our help, that still needs us to advocate for an immigration reform, even though right now we're kind of negative about it just because of who's representing us. We still need to advocate for that because there's still a large, there's still a pretty big group of undocumented individuals here. And you might even have an aunt or uncle that are in this situation and stuff. So, any other?
But just to touch on that, to be honest, sometimes it feels like there's no point in telling you guys about our story and the process that we go through if there isn't that opportunity there created, like she was saying, if it gets shut down in the government, then there won't be any opportunity for other dreamers or parents of those to even, apply for these, work permits and social security numbers. So that's why that is somewhere where we should actually start in putting more attention to. That way it doesn't get shut down. After that, then comes the personal stories and, networking to try and help those people through those processes because they are lengthy processes, people get lawyers and spend thousands and thousands of dollars just to get help in filling out paperwork or, just because they don't think that they can do it on their own. I filled out my paperwork on my own, in the living room, of my home, and it went fine. But it's very detailed. You do need to have a lot of information that you don't even know whether you have or not. Like she was saying, they ask you for living records, medical records that you're like, you barely even remember stuff from yesterday. It's like, how are you gonna remember stuff from 10 years ago?
Exactly.
So, and it's, you get shut down pretty quickly because if you're missing, a dot or underlined something on the paperwork, you get it sent back, and then it's like, oh my goodness, so much longer for that process to just even go through. The second time that I applied, I forgot a page that I didn't even have to fill out, but I forgot to put it in the envelope. I got it sent back to me, so that was another, $20, for, the mail courier, and then having to wait for that process, And after that, once you apply and you get your approval, it's like, it doesn't end there. Then you have to go through, certain appointments and interviews for even to get approved, and get all those rights that you need. So, you do have to be careful and, the process that follows after, even having that opportunity.
And I want to point out something too. DACA and DAPA is a temporary solution. It's not a permanent solution. Like I said, I still live with the fear that tomorrow it can be discontinued. So what's going to leave me? I won't be able to work where I work. I won't be able to have a license, and I won't be able to continue my schooling. So we need something better. And like she said, they make us jump through hoops, literally. I think for mine, the mail lost my card, so I only received my approval letter, so now I have to pay another $500 to replace my card. So it's basically a business, it's good that they have these kind of work permits. I think I was reading this article that DAPA will give, don't quote me on this, but I think it was $63 billion to the state of California alone when it passes. So it's a business. They will make a lot of money from our community, but yet they're still saying that they don't want us here. Well, we're actually, making revenue for them. You had a question.
Yes. What advice would you give to a recent high school dreamer that is planning to attend a university next year? And by advice, I mean professional and academic. Is there something within the institution, such as, a program similar to DAPA or any other funding source? And how can this student perhaps get an introduction to internships or co-ops or things like that.
Okay, so the question is, what advice would I give a high school senior that is going through the college process, right? Okay, so I've actually been working a lot with high school seniors, just because I'm a huge advocate. You know, I don't want to be the only dreamer that's going to school and be selfish about it. I want to let them know. My number one advice for them is to keep their options open, and I mean like not just focus in one school, because like myself, something is bound to go wrong. So I'm finding that about a lot of dreamers, that they have their heart set on one school, and not okay. So right now, because of the way the situation is, it's better for dreamers to go to a private institution, because they don't have to tell anyone what they do with their money. But that's something we need to change. We need to change the way the public schools are doing things. We need to pressure them to pass policies that will embrace undocumented students, that will embrace DACA students. Another advice that I tell them, that they're gonna have to work very hard, and but it's not impossible. I think for me, the first year, even though I'm only a sophomore, last year was my first year, I was working way too much, and that reflected on my grades. And because of that struggle, I can't even apply for an internship because my GPA is in there. I know I'm like not stupid, but it's just like, I have to do a lot of things, and that's one thing that I tell them, it's a hard process, but it's not impossible. So that's what I tell them.
I would say like you can suggest they do like private grants, because that's the only way that you can get accepted into like, you have the opportunity to get this money that is obviously private. And I mean, it's really a relief for someone to at least have the hope to get some type of money. If it's about money, like if that's the struggle, a community college is a good way to start. Especially now, Obama just introduced the option of having 2 years of free community college. Like that's a perfect option for someone that is still thinking about going to college as a senior, right? I mean, you can find ways. I think that the point that we're all here gathered for is just so that we keep encouraging our community, our young brothers and sisters to pursue higher education and not to be shut down just because you don't have that status. It's unfortunate, and we know someone, or we ourselves have gone through it, but you can do the research and you can talk to people that have done it like them and get their information. You shoot someone an email, and I promise you, Kenia is not gonna turn back on you if you need that information. She's gonna email you right back and say, hey, this is the grant, this is the person you gotta talk to, tell them that I referred you, blah, that's it. It's just a matter of you going out to do it and continue talking about it, because people don't know, people that are citizens here don't know of many things that they can apply for. So it's just a matter of us keep pushing it and keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think going along with your question, it was, part of that is academic and professional advice. We can't stress enough how important the networking is on these issues. Just like she mentioned, if you email someone and you know someone and you say, I got referred by this person, that person, mm-hmm. they make a connection, to that you're part of that group, that, they've made it through, maybe they have the same background, as far as, getting internships and, jobs, being in the status that we are, I was able to get an internship for like $3,000 doing some research on turtles, not anything related to my career here, but it was still an internship. It was still gave me an opportunity to go to conferences, go to meet graduate students, meet postdocs, meet professors that I gained a lot of advice from. I learned a lot of why I have the job that I have, which is research that I do, So it's really, applying to things that you might not even know that you are eligible for or not. Just apply anyway. Like that, you know, just because it says there, you know, it gives you like a no or something that you're like, oh, I don't think it'll happen for me because of this. No, just apply anyway. You know, that's one of the best things. Or, you know, talk to a person, you know, that, you know, who knows, they might know somebody at some company or, you know, some other institution that at least you have an in. They'll have an in, you know, at that place, you know. So, it's networking. That's, I think, one of our best advices.
Yeah, and to go with that too, I forgot to ask this at the beginning. Is anyone a dreamer here today? Okay, that's another point that I wanted to make. I can think of, off the top of my head, about 8 dreamers that I know that go to Iowa State. And they're not here, you know. So if you know them, let them know that embracing their situation can bring a lot of good opportunities. Let networking. I had the chance recently to tell my story to a bigger audience just because I didn't grow up with my parents telling me not to talk about it, so that's why I'm so open to talking about it in front of a room of very conservative individuals. Like, I embrace who I am and I embrace my background. And because I'm so willing to tell my story, I've been presented with crazy opportunities that I never even imagined that would happen to me. And like networking, I really want to work somewhere downtown. Because of it, again, embracing and advocating for this, you know, I've been able to network with very important people that work in the partnership, the Greater Des Moines Partnership. So it's letting your friends know that it's okay to talk about their situation. Nothing bad's going to happen to their families, you know, and to get out there and to not limit themselves just because of their background or their situation. I think it's a very important thing. Unfortunately, I want to thank you, first of all, for being here and seeing this as an interesting topic. Unfortunately, right now, I think the dreamer community is a bit disconnected to a lot of the problems that we're facing. I feel like something needs to happen for them to realize that this is something that we need to fight for, or else it will be taken away from us. So, and thank you for coming. It makes me really happy that you guys are here. Any other questions? Yes.
How many times can you renew your DACA?
How many times can we renew our DACA? So there's not an ending period. We will have to renew our DACA until either an immigration reform passes or it gets taken away from us. So right now it's never ending. Are you familiar with TPS, Temporary Protected Status? It was given to Central Americans after we had, I know Salvadorians have it because we had a really bad earthquake, so they've had it since 2001. So they're waiting. They actually have to renew theirs every 18 months. So it's every 18 months, $500. And so that's basically our reality too. We don't know when we're gonna have a path to a green card. We don't know if the last time we're gonna renew it, it'll be because it was taken away from us.
To be honest, like, we don't actually have a legal status right now, really. Where, you know, the DACA means, you know, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. That just means that that we're protected, that they're not able to deport us. But that doesn't give us a legal status yet. We can't call ourselves permanent residents. We can't call ourselves U.S. citizens. Like she said, we're just waiting to see, you know, whether we can even renew it, you know, if that's even going to be possible the next time around, or it might not even be possible. So, you know, the opportunities that we're taking right now, while we do have that Social Security, that work permit, whatever it is, you know, we have to take them now and do stuff now, or else we won't be able to later on at all whatsoever. We won't have any say in anything.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
I guess just to add on to your response to the gentleman's question, if there's somebody applying to a specific school, you may know somebody who's graduated from that school, and then you can put that dreamer in touch with that young person so they can mentor them as far as helping them.
That I work at, we actually just had someone hired from like Grandview. You know, we have a lot of people hired from, you know, Iowa State and stuff, but, you know, it goes to show that no matter which way you take, you'll end up at the same place. But it proves that there are very different possibilities, and, you know, there's just not one way of doing something. So as far as, you know, getting high school students to realize that, you know, it's like, you know, like Kenia said, you know, when she was in high school, she just didn't think about, you know, applying it through mail, you know, or any other way. For me, I never even had to apply to Iowa State online. The only reason I had my Science Lab program, and I filled out somewhat the application by hand, but it was sending all of my information to my Science Bound, you know, contacts that I had, and they're the ones that, who knows, I to this day do not know exactly what they did in order for my stuff to get through admissions. You know, when it goes through them, it's like, it's different, you know, it's a different process. So it's just creating those connections and relationships. Other questions?
And I also would like to add that we are often put in the international student category. I know of a dreamer here at Iowa State. He's a sophomore, and we were talking, and he was telling me that at the very beginning of every semester, he has to go through the international student office, get transferred to some other office. So it's every year he has to do that process. If there was a box or something that would identify him as you know, that belongs to this group of type of student he is, he wouldn't have to go through all that. So it's advocating for those little things that can make, you know, the lives of dreamers a little bit easier here at Iowa State.
Because I think the international student tuition is more expensive than
Yeah.
the resident or student.
Yeah, and what I've heard is that public institutions pick and choose who they give in-state tuition. You know, like I said from the beginning, if you talk to the wrong person, you will be charged out-of-state tuition because you're.
It's even more than out of state. Like it's completely
It's
different.
double.
Yeah.
It's
Like
yeah.
I came to Iowa State for my bachelor's, and by that time I didn't have any documents. And I tell you, it was hard. And my mom paid international fees for me to come here and graduate. But you know what? I did it, and I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she got the money. I honestly, we had an apartment in Ecuador since when we left, and she sold it. And that's all we had. That's all we had under our name. But I did it, you know, and it was a process, and it's true what they say, it's who you know, because I got into school without having any documents and without having a student visa. And I got into school through, my cousin knew somebody in admissions, and that's how I got into school. I didn't even, like, just like you said, I didn't even have to fill out my whole application, but I got in. And I was like, I'm gonna take this opportunity as much as I can and finish school, and I did great in school. And now, fortunately, I have my documents now, and I qualified for in-state tuition, but it's just those little opportunities that you get, like, to just get into school, and you can share that story with everyone. Like, you can share her story, my story, and everybody that is a dreamer, if you truly believe that this is what you're here for and this is what you're meant to do, you can do it. You just need to meet and talk about it and tell people about your status and tell them, listen, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to be, and I'm a human being too. I deserve education, I deserve to graduate, I deserve to prove to everybody that I am smart enough to do this. That just because my mom brought me here when I was young doesn't mean that I don't deserve this. You know, we want the opportunity. And this is the first time I actually share this with anybody. So I just want you to know that I'm glad you guys are here. This didn't happen when I was here. And it's unfortunate that we don't have a room full of people here right now, but the people that are here right now can take these stories and go places with it and keep talking about it and keep sharing. You know, you can do it, and you can tell your junior high school friend or your brother or siblings or whoever that they can do it too, and that they just need to meet the right people and be out there and let your voice be heard.
Yeah, to stress on that, it's who says, that literally just by not having that status and that number, just because of that, you get denied, the education and all the other opportunities that you get when you went through, college and stuff. So, you can't stress it enough that it's possible, it's even if by just having, an in, it's like, I don't understand how the school boards or, the public, education representatives can't grant those opportunities, especially if people like us, had to pay out of our own pockets. It's like, what are they gonna gain anyway? We're paying out of our own pockets anyway. We're not asking for, financial aid even. We're asking just for that opportunity. We're not even asking, we're not gonna ever try to ask for more than we can get, because we've already come across that growing up. It's like, you've been shut down so many times that, you're always gonna take what you can get, but you're always gonna be on the lookout for those opportunities. You're always gonna be on the lookout for those opportunities. So again, it's who you know and not being afraid to ask and just go for it, as opposed to like standing back and waiting, for something to come to you, or somebody else doing it for you.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing that. You said something very good. You guys are here because you find this interesting, or you want to know more about it. And I think our community hasn't realized that this is an issue that not only affects the Dreamer community, our parents, but it affects the entire Latino community as a whole. If we ever want to be represented in this country, we need to have more power in businesses, in the engineer field. We just need more Latino professionals, and how are we going to do it? We have to do it by advocating for others. My dad was telling me this one of these days. He said that the reason why El Salvador did not, the reason why El Salvador is the way it is right now, is because those who got an education did not advocate for those that were going to be coming of age and getting, it was their time to get an education. He said that at one point in El Salvador, I don't know if this is the same for Mexico, but in El Salvador, there was jobs. There were, you could go to college and get a good career. But maybe those professionals were selfish enough to not see the importance for advocating for those in the back of the line. And that's why our countries are the way they are. And we are here, and we're fortunate to be here. And education is a privilege that we must advocate for for others to have the same privilege that we're having. I think that's why I emphasize that so much, advocating and sharing the story. And if you have a friend who's in the same situation as us, tell them, it's time to care. And that's the issue that I'm running into right now. I don't think a lot of Dreamers care enough yet. Let's not wait until something bad happens. I believe in Georgia, I was on a conference call. In Georgia, they found out, I think it was 2008, they found out that there was an undocumented student in one of the universities, and a professor was paying for his education. And the school board found out. It made a huge problem in Georgia. If you look this up, right now, less than 3% of Latinos go to a college, a university institution in Georgia, just because they made it almost impossible for Latinos to go to school there. And it wasn't until something bad happened that the Dreamers decided to, come together and get organized. And I believe they were even going on. They were going to court because of this. So right now the Dreamers are so organized that they even stop deportations. So, we could be doing so much more as a community here. I know we're getting our education and I know we're busy. Trust me, I know that. My calendar is always full with things, but we need to make it a priority to not wait until something bad happens in the state of Iowa that will make us wake up and make us see the importance of working to avoid those problems, to avoid problems from happening. Any other questions? Okay. Any other questions?
What do you recommend, to us as students here, and I know most of us belong to like an organization or organization on campus. What do you recommend us to bring awareness to the ISU community about this problem, and especially for like the dreamers, so they can advocate for themselves and for others?
So what can we advise you guys to do here on campus? Okay, bringing awareness. Wait, do you want to say something? Yeah.
You can think about it. So the question was, what can the Latino organizations do here on campuses to help the situation or bring awareness to it? I think Kenia said something very important, which is always think about what you guys have and what we don't have, which a lot of the time it's not even material things, it's actually those rights, which is to vote. For us, we don't get a right to vote in anything, so we can't have a say besides like us just standing up here sharing our story, So voting is a huge thing. Being active in politics, a lot of people, joke about politics. There's a lot of jokes made about politics, but it's not funny when it actually is issues that, you have people that are, they're important for them. So I would say voting and getting more involved in that aspect is, as an individual. That's not even as an organization, as an individual. As organizations, it's fully, creating awareness of our stories, whether it's having, a documentary night, we're not the only ones, there's multiple films, books, articles done about this. Maybe you can do something like that. But, as a college student level, it's really just thinking about those opportunities that you guys have that we never got to have, and taking those opportunities, because when you take those opportunities as a professional, when you're out in the work industry, you can be up there with the hot shots and making those big decisions that, maybe you might not be able to make, or other people, generations before us are not able to make. So
I think you said a very good thing. I think getting involved in the politics, I can't say how much I dislike politicians. I really don't like them because they play with the immigration issue so much that it gets frustrating. But just because I don't like them doesn't mean that they don't play a very important role in the decisions that are made that affect our families. So you said a very good thing. Voting is a huge privilege. I can't wait till I'm able to vote. I'll make sure to vote for everything that there's out there. And also, as organization, like she said, raising awareness, not just to the dreamers and waking them up, but also Iowa State as a whole. They are also voters. They need to know exactly the issues that are affecting our communities. For example, a lot of people don't know this, but the government makes a lot of profit for every person they put in a deportation proceeding. So they actually have to meet a quota of people that they need to put in jails to be deported. And this can all be found online. And it's heartbreaking how much money they make by just deporting our people. And it's sad. It could be our aunt or uncle. We don't know if they're gonna show up to their work. These are things that happen in our community. For example, I know in Perry, Iowa, recently they've had these issues where people are getting deported for mistakes, and it's all a business. So bringing that to the Iowa State community, telling them about it, putting up flyers, could be controversial flyers, but it's the truth. I think having more of these talks with the people that you know, tell them how important it is, and then how much it affects the community as a whole, not just us dreamers. And I don't mean just the Latino community. If, one day DACA does get discontinued, if DAPA doesn't become a thing, it will affect the entire nation, not just us. And that's something that people need to realize. And, they often make comments like, just send them back or whatever. We are important, and we need to let them know how much we matter to this country. And I think raising awareness is a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Iowa State Daily News is here, and that'll be one way that, this event gets out. And, who wouldn't like to have, one of those, big ISU Memorial Union, halls filled with people learning about this issue? How many talks have we been to, how many of those talks have we been to that, like I said, there's a little documentary, there's like articles, there's people asking questions, that, it's an entryway for our story and the issue itself, not just our story, but the issue itself to get out in, so many different directions that, you start off small and it's gonna get bigger. So, yeah.
Just while we're talking dirty politics, I'm a member of a group called Amos, which is, the members are basically congregations in central Iowa, but particularly I'm in the immigration group, people interested in that. And while we're waiting for comprehensive immigration reform, we're thinking, well, what can we do in Iowa to make life better for the immigrants that we have here? And right now one thing we're focusing on is the driver's licenses. Everybody has stories about how disruptive it is to your life to not be able to drive your kids to school or not be able to get a job because you'd have to drive to work. A lot of people in law enforcement, a fair number of people in law enforcement are in favor of the idea of giving a driver's permit to people who don't have social security numbers if they've passed the driver's test and they have insurance and they don't have a record. So there's going to be legislation introduced in the Iowa House, in the Senate in the next week or two. Now, I don't know if we're going to win this time around, but we had a meeting in Ames 10 days ago, and we kind of laid out a plan for, what can we do here in Story County? And so members of some of the congregations are going and talking to their insurance agent, because driver's licenses affect insurance. It would save all of us $100 if these folks got licenses. We're talking to our politicians, we're talking to the Chamber of Commerce, and we're dividing up the work, and it's kind of a homemade, kind of a retail politics, but we're trying to affect the community around us, and we think, we ought to be able to do this. We know enough people, and there are enough people in law enforcement for it, that it should be a win-win for everybody. Not saying it's going to happen, but it sure makes a lot of sense. So that's one thing we're doing with politics.
To be honest, those little political events that there are, little laws that you try to pass, sometimes not that many people go to those, and the people that you mostly see there are older generations. Not that many young people are seen at those events. And when they do see a young person, even like, college students like yourselves, you guys catch the eyes of those politicians, and they're really interested to hear what you have are the future, the future generations that are coming. It's, they want to hear that opinion. They're really more interested about hearing your opinion than they are of, the past, the older generations that, have been fighting for this for a long time, So, people who are present at those events are literally the people that make it up there to, like, Washington and, all those other higher end events, that essentially, who doesn't hear about the elections? Who isn't aware of when the elections happen? And it's like, you hear about it, but you're not really educated on what they mean for, these smaller communities that we have, in smaller cities. And Iowa is a huge player in the starting caucuses in the elections, So it's funny to think, we're from Iowa, people make a lot of jokes about Iowa, but it's like, we're really important actually, and people don't actually realize that.
Did you have a question?
I think that it's important, the question that you had about like what can we do as students here in Iowa State, but you belong to an organization, a Latino organization, and I'm sure that many other people here belong to other types of an organization. It doesn't even have to be a Latino organization, but just us getting connected as members or leaders of these organizations and planning things, such as, maybe having, outside in front of the library to have people come together and talk about, the free speech zone is always there. Like, there's things that we can do. We just haven't connected in a way so that we can organize, Like Rick said, we can't, like, they're moving pieces to have this legislation hopefully passed. Like, we can do something on that day so that, we can start talking about it. Like, why are we meeting here outside the free speech zone? Oh, because we're trying to get people to sign off on, temporary driver's license for, undocumented individuals. Like, just small things like that can start up a movement, really. And I hope that really happens because, like I said, I see a lot of people here wearing, Greek letters. Like, all of you are, like, important for this type of things and these type of grassroots movements to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of people because it's a bigger room and everything, but imagine all of you being just part of, forming yourself as one group. Each of you can contribute so many different things with your own personal talents or, organizations that it becomes even bigger. Sometimes when you plan events just for your own organization, it's like, oh, if only we had a bigger group of people. Well, here's your bigger group of people. It's like, that you just got to make those connections again.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I envy of Iowa State, all the different organizations and stuff. At Drake, we're trying to make a new Latino organization, and we have 4 people interested right now. But that's just because, it's a very different school. So the fact that, you have all these different organizations, you can make a huge impact if you guys come together. If we're still talking about politics, a lot of different representatives are going to start coming to Iowa, talking at different colleges. President Obama was just at UNI. Let's say a future presidential candidate comes to Iowa State. Be the voice for the Dreamer community. Be the voice for the undocumented. Get in there and ask them those harder questions. Ask them, do you really want to deport my aunt? Simple like that. And you will put them on spot, and they will have to answer your question. And that way, we know what their intentions are. We bring that to light to people that will be voting for them. And like I said, because that's what happened at the Iowa Freedom Summit, I asked one of the representatives, his name is, I can say this, I'll show you the video too. His name is Jim Dement. I asked him, sir, I'm a dreamer. Do you support me? He told me he supports policies, not people. What does that say about that candidate? He could be running to be president in a year and a half. So we need to bring that to light, and we need to make others aware, who will be representing us, who will be affecting our community as a whole. So by coming together as organizations and making a huge impact, like you said, standing, I don't know where that location is at, but like holding up signs, Yeah, holding up signs. And Steve King just called us deportables. That's not even a word, but he called us deportables, okay? That's very offensive, and it's, holding him and other people like him accountable, not just from the Republican Party, but also from the Democrats, because, they're not angels either. They use us to get votes, so, we need to hold them accountable for what they're saying, because it affects, like I said, our community as a whole. Yes.
I know when I was here, I graduated in 2011, but I was really involved in a lot of organizations when I was here. And before the Dream Act ever came about, we started meeting just the executive board of different organizations. We emailed everybody, and we were let's have a meeting, and talk about what we can do. And we were meeting almost on a monthly basis, every 2 weeks maybe. We did marches here on campus. We marched from the MU to the free speech zone, and we were there for a while. We called the news, we called the daily. So there's things you can do just here, being here. But I would say just email presidents of organizations, talk to your MLOs from the different colleges, the multicultural liaison officers, because those are good resources to have as well. They're always there to help students. We talked to Dr. Hill a bunch of times too, and his door is always open too, and he's open to discuss. Dr. Hill is the vice president for student affairs. You were here too.
Well, we did a lot of events back there, and that wasn't even thought of back then. We were really active.
When the Marshalltown race happened, we did even a fundraiser to help.
So we've done it before. If we've done it before, now that it's actually a hot topic, we can even get more people involved. And listen, I tell you, it's a controversial topic, and people don't like to talk about it. And we had people. I was holding up a sign, and some guy stood right in front of me, asking me all these questions. But you know what? All we did was stay quiet. Because we don't need to answer ignorant questions. We don't need to discuss things right there. No, if you want to have a conversation with me, we can talk about this later, not at the moment where I'm marching with a sign talking about my curly hair. You can find the places to talk to people if they really want to talk to you. What he was trying to do was instigate the situation, But you have to pick your battles and be smarter. And if we did it back then, we can definitely do it now.
And there's a larger community of Latinos,
on campus
now than there was when we were first.
That's for sure.
Over here.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think you make a very good point. I think since we got DACA, a lot of people think that everything is okay. And I can't emphasize enough that it's a temporary solution. We still have to march. We still have to advocate. This is not, just because we have a work permit and we can have licenses does not mean that everything is okay. We need to wake everyone up and tell them, hey, this is not going to be forever. Tomorrow it might not be there. So we need to fight for something better. And be positive, even though it's hard for me to be positive sometimes. But, as long as we try and, we connect, especially the different organizations, something big can happen here, especially at Iowa State where there's a large Latino community.
The best way to put it is, for example, me and Kenia, everything that we've worked up till now in our lives, college, high school, work that we are right now, if nothing else happens, it'll just be taken away.